I came home from another brutal night shift at the hospital. It was 7 a.m. My scrubs still stained, the back of my neck damp with sweat, and all I wanted was a long shower and 6 hours of dreamless sleep. But instead, I walked into a scene that knocked the air right out of me. There she was, Chelsea, 17 years old, curled up on our couch like a stray cat who hadn't slept all night. A chipped mug of tea trembled in her hands. My husband, Michael, sat across from her, eyes wide, jaw tight. The air between them felt thick, like they'd already had the conversation I was about to be pulled into. And before I could even ask, she looked up and said it. My parents kicked me out. I asked her why. She said, "Because I'm pregnant." That's how it started. One sentence that shattered any idea of normal I had clung to. Chelsea, his baby sister, still technically a child, and now carrying one. She had come to us across 3 state lines, escaping parents who had once done the same to Michael. Only back then, it wasn't pregnancy. It was because he told them he was gay. Same living room, same kind of trauma, different trigger. Michael looked at me like he was holding in a tidal wave. And then, quietly, he pulled me aside and whispered something that changed everything. "We should raise the baby." I stared at him. I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. And I said no. I said it without hesitation. I said it because it was the truth. I don't want children. I never have. We talked about this years ago, before rings, before moving in together. It was one of the few things we had always been in sync about. No kids. Not ours. Not someone else's. It wasn't an accident. It was a choice. And now he looked at me like I was the villain in his redemption story. I don't think I've ever seen him look that disappointed. It wasn't just about a baby. It was about his past. The echoes of his parents' rejection had never really gone silent. They just got quieter. And now they were screaming again. Through Chelsea's voice, through her tears, through that story of a quarterback who didn't want to be a father, and parents who'd rather see their daughter homeless than unwed and pregnant. Michael wanted to rewrite the ending. He wanted to do what his parents didn't. He wanted to save her, and I wanted to sleep. That night, I lay awake while Michael sat silently in the living room with his sister. He didn't come to bed. I think he thought I'd change my mind by morning, that I'd wake up with a different heart. But I didn't. What I did do, though, was listen. And then I asked her, Chelsea, what she wanted. She didn't want to marry the baby's father. Turns out, he wasn't the villain Michael made him out to be. He wanted to help. He wanted to be involved. But Chelsea didn't want to tie her entire life to him. She said he wasn't abusive, just not the person she saw a future with. She wanted a new story. At first, she said she wanted to keep the baby, raise it on her own. I told her honestly, I didn't think that was a good idea. Not because she wasn't capable of love, but because she didn't yet know what it took to raise a child alone. And to my surprise, she agreed. So we started talking about options. We considered abortion, but it was too late. 12 weeks had already passed. So we talked about adoption. We sat down together, the 3 of us. I explained open adoption, how she could still be in the child's life, how there were families out there aching to give their love to a baby, aching for a chance. Michael was quiet. He wasn't thrilled, but he listened. And for the first time in days, I felt like maybe we were on the same page, or at least reading the same book. I told Chelsea she could stay with us for a while. I meant that. I wasn't going to turn away a girl who had no one. But I was also careful. I said we'd revisit it, that we'd talk again in a few weeks, maybe longer, because I've seen too many a whiles turn into forevers, especially when babies are involved. Now here's where things got complicated again. Michael, my husband, the man I love, he hadn't worked full-time since 2020. When the pandemic hit, he lost his job, and we both agreed he'd stay home and manage the house. I worked nights. He cooked, cleaned. I didn't mind. I never complained. It was what worked for us. But now, raising a baby on my salary, when I barely had enough energy to make it to the end of a shift? No. So I told him that too. And to his credit, he heard me. He said he'd start looking for work again after the holiday weekend. That's something, right? It's progress. Chelsea's still here, and I'm okay with that. For now. But I'm watching. Closely. Because babies don't fix broken things. And this family has seen its fair share of breaks. I also found out something else. The quarterback? He wasn't the heartless player we first heard about. Chelsea lied. She said what she needed to say to justify running. I don't blame her. But it matters. It matters because maybe, just maybe, this baby has more options than we thought. We've already reached out to a few adoption agencies, ones that specialize in open adoptions. We're learning. We're not rushing. And we're doing it together, at least for now. But Michael, I still see it in his eyes. That longing, that hope, and maybe that grief. He wanted to save someone. Maybe he thought raising this baby would save him too. But I've learned this. You can't build healing on a foundation of guilt. Not for long. So I ask again. When the dust settles, when emotions cool, when the silence stretches longer than either of us expected, am I the asshole for telling my husband no? This story is not about a baby. Not really. It's about what happens when your past knocks on your door wearing a familiar face and carrying a future you didn't ask for. It's about the collision between love and boundaries, between compassion and self-preservation. And most of all, it's about the kind of choices that don't have villains, just people. People trying to do the right thing, even when they disagree on what that is. Michael wanted to break a cycle. OP wanted to hold on to a life they'd already built. Chelsea just wanted to be safe. And in that living room, 3 lives sat together on a couch, trying to reassemble something that looked like family. So now we ask you, what would you have done? Would you take in the baby? Would you take in the sister? Or would you do what this narrator did, offer shelter, but draw the line before it became a life-altering commitment? Comment below. Let's talk about it. Because sometimes the hardest decision is the one where no one is wrong.